Welcome to Investing in Florida podcast, dedicated to exploring the investment landscape in Florida and uncovering strategies for maximizing your returns. So I am Nadia Daggett here in our next podcast with Justin Burnett, and I am excited that we got to meet very briefly the other day, but I was excited to hear about what you're doing in the industry because this is something new. I know that there's possibly a few other companies that are doing it, but not local here to Florida. So this gives us another way to connect with our listings. And I'm excited to talk to you, Justin. So what got you started in this track in real estate?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Nadia. It was great meeting you. I'm glad we get to continue our conversation. But I'll briefly tell you my story. I actually was born in Minnesota, but I grew up here in Central Florida. And I met my wife about 15 years ago, and we have moved 13 times in 15 years. So I think you may be the only other person that may have moved more than me. I don't know. We have to talk about that because I was seeing all the places that you were at, but we've moved a lot. We've bought and sold 7 homes. We've built 3 of them ourselves. So, over time, we just kind of had an eye for real estate. We always wanted to get into real estate, but I was in my corporate job, and I spent 23 years as a leader of large customer service organizations and sales organizations. And she actually was a construction project manager at the same company. So when we decided to kind of pivot and follow our passions a little bit, obviously this is great for her because she gets to manage construction projects all day long. And for me, there is such a thing called Minnesota Nice. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or if your listeners have heard of it, but it is real, where people in Minnesota just love being nice to others and helping others. I know it sounds weird in today's society, but it's a thing, and that's always been there for me. So I've always enjoyed solving problems and helping people out. And so for me, this is a great way to do that because I think there's such an opportunity for what we do to help sellers, to help investors to get more out of their investment. And so that's what led us to it. It is a passion project, and both of us get to come in and do what we love every single day. So I'm excited.
Well, I know this is a great opportunity, especially with the way the real estate market is now. I know things were crazy. People weren't even looking at the homes and they were buying within 30 seconds with 60 people out the door with bids before. And now things have shifted. So I think this is something that is huge for our agents to have as a second option as well for our listings. So tell me a little bit about your company and how it will help the listings on the market today.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I was the beneficiary of that market as well. When we left Texas to come back, that was exactly our house. We just left for the weekend. We had 38 showings and 8 offers and like 2 family letters. So those days are definitely gone. And, so our company is Renovation Sells. And, we try to get homes ready for listing. So we come in and we do quick cosmetic updates. We have full design, we have finance, and then full project management. To get those done. Our average job actually only takes about 3 weeks. So we try to be efficient because I know time is money, especially when you're investing. Like sitting there and having holding costs is not what you want to do. So we try to be really efficient with what we do, which is why it's quick and cosmetic. But I have to say, like those 3 things really help us stand out from others. I know you mentioned there's a few more players that are in the space. Having that local ownership, and I would say our secret sauce is my wife. Because she makes sure things get done right and gets done on time. And those are obviously 2 things that people care about with renovations. But our design team is also pretty fantastic as well. They do market research and stay on top of trends. They look at the homes that have sold that are finished to see what people are going for and what's going to get you clicks. And so if you're buying to flip, or if you're doing investing, obviously you want those clicks. If you're renting, you want something that's clickable. We all know if it's on Airbnb or short term, people care about the pictures. And so that's what they really do, is make sure we have great pictures at the end of the day, and we do great work. And so finance is that other differentiator for us as well. We have, up to 6 months to pay that back. So obviously it can be paid at closing, but there's no lien put on the house, which is also another benefit of our finance. So I think we kind of solve people's, hesitations that they have when they think of renovation. It costs too much, takes too long, and it's not done right. And I think we have, kind of those 3 things that help address that.
That's awesome. And so with what you do, what actually can you perform? Is it remodeling the kitchen, the bathroom, the roof? What are the things that you can do?
Yeah, a great question. We try to be a one-stop shop. So we try to make it as simple as possible because obviously, if people want to leverage our financing, we build those things in. We have a project we're working on now where we came in and did a bid for the interior of the house. It turns out that the roof needs to be done as well. So I'll have a roofer that I was able to pull in and get him to do a bid there and include it all as one bid here. So we try to be a one-stop shop. There's really not a lot we won't do, but I do try to stay away from landscaping. That can kind of get a little bit silly sometimes. And then we try not to move walls and move electrical and plumbing because you hear me talk about those 3-week timelines. Everybody knows that that gets extended when I have to start pulling permits to get things moved. And so if we can live within the existing structure of the house, we can get it done pretty quick. And so, yeah, there's really not a lot we won't do. I think everybody knows the kitchen is what people click on first. The master bed and bath is second. And then, paint and flooring are usually the next two things when it comes to priority.
Nice. And I know that there's a few things that other companies may say that they can't be on Zillow, it cannot be on MLS prior to doing those renovations. Is that an issue that you see as well?
Not for us, not at all. No, the relationship that we have with First National Bank of Omaha, they allow us to do whatever you want. Basically, they're just financing it for you. They don't have any say as to when it can go on the market, when it can hit the MLS. So they have the same mission that we do, is to try to get a house sold as quickly as possible. And so those aren't constraints or limitations with us at all, and makes it easier, a whole lot easier for the investor or for the seller.
That's definitely helpful because I know there's some that they get started, but then they realize there's some huge things they need to fix, and that changes things. And one thing that we deal a lot with is Airbnbs and short-term rentals. And I know we were talking a little bit about this, but a lot of our investors are buying and then they are looking at furnishing it, which could be, $10,000, $15,000 after the fact. Is that something that you also can include in your renovations?
Yeah, so there are certain things that we can and cannot. And so after we spoke, I went and checked, and that's one of the areas that it's kind of outside the scope of what they want to include in there. So I said we try to be a one-stop shop for everything. There are limitations with just how we do business with the bank, but that's one area that we won't be able to help out with. But try to fit everything else in there for you.
Yes, yes. So when it comes to real estate, have you seen throughout your time doing this, does it sell faster? I think we all know the answer to this, but does it sell faster after you do the renovations and the changes to the house?
Spoiler alert, people want a finished house. Isn't that crazy? Like they want to have a finished house. I can't believe it. It's actually funny when you were talking about the days where you're getting all these offers and 2020, 2021. That was the only time frame where unfinished homes actually saw a year-over-year lift in sales. Because like you said, nobody cared. Everybody was just coming in, buying them sight unseen because there was such limited inventory. Obviously, that's shifted now. And so I think the latest stat is those fixer upper homes are going for about 10% less than their value. And then a finished home is selling above value. So you start to see this huge differentiation, in 30% price difference between the two. But they definitely are moving faster. There's two reasons why homes are sitting on the market for longer than 30 days today. Number one, it's overpriced. Number two, it needs updates. And I start to think about like where we're heading with this, and you see the numbers all the time of where the buyers are in the market. And obviously baby boomers have been a huge chunk of that, but that's starting to shift, like Gen X. And then you see the millennials coming up behind them. And the one thing I know about my kids is that they don't want to go do work if they don't have to. So I think most millennials coming in want that finished product. They don't want to go in and do the work themselves.
Yeah, we hear the same thing. So most of our buyers, especially the younger crowd, they're coming in, they're working from home. They don't want to have to work on their house while they're working from home. And I have seen that huge shift. They're willing to pay a lot extra for that finished home or a brand new home. But if you can take a home that is older, renovate it, then you can make a lot more money off of your property. So that is a great way to go. So tell me, you've been doing this for a little while, what has been the most difficult project that you've ever had? Do you have any of those that you've had?
Well, of course. And I think, obviously the things that are on the surface level that everybody thinks about is we get something open and there's a bigger problem than what we thought. Obviously, those are challenging. But I would say probably the biggest one is when a seller and or agent are either indecisive or kind of absent. And so like we have a design team that goes in and does the design and we give one shot, like, hey, let's look at this together. Here's your design board. This is what it's going to look like. And almost every time, yeah, that looks great. But there's some times where, oh no, let's go back, and it delays the whole process. And so I think those are the hardest because obviously they're more emotionally attached to the final product and it takes longer to get it going through. And then all my team they're sitting there where they had it planned to come out and do work, and now they're delayed because we get hung up on design. And it's kind of the same thing with agents too, because we like the agents to really be our customer, because obviously they're the ones that are guiding the transaction with their seller or even with their buyer. And so, if we have an agent that's not being honest with the person and telling them what needs to be done, like we've had several homes that have gone on market and been listed after we talked to them for exactly what a renovated home would be, and it just sits there and continues to see those price reductions. And so not being honest with them up front and telling them what work needs to be done is hard, because then we come in and we have to try to clean it up afterwards. And then it just makes that difficult situation and relationship with the seller and with the agent.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, just being able to look at the property and make sure that, we're putting it out there. Cause I have seen everybody thinks right now, I mean, they're looking at Zillow and they're going, oh, well, it says that my property is worth $1 million. So, this is where we're going with it.
Let's cash out.
Let's do it. Yes. And so I think that's a big problem with the market right now, is just seeing that, a lot of Zillow sellers are just not able to come down, even though, because there's still very limited properties on the market, but the very limited buyers able to do it as well now that the interest rates are up. So it's definitely putting a slow mark on it. So what do you see happening in the industry, especially with I know this was a kind of a newer thing in the industry,
Yeah.
rehabbing it and then putting it to sell. What do you see coming into the industry now in the next few years?
Yeah. Well, obviously everybody's like standing and wondering what the Fed's going to do, where rates are going to go. And so nobody has a crystal ball to tell where that's going to be. But, I was at a meeting earlier today and the mortgage broker was presenting and he's like, hey, look, you've got to date your rate, you got to marry your house. And so I think if everybody did that, that would change my answer. But most people don't understand that. And so they're leaving a lot of appreciation that's going to be there when those rates do come down. So I see us kind of sitting in this place where we are right now, where the buyer pool is really small. There is enough inventory for them, but they're just waiting because they want those rates to come down. And obviously, once the first rate cut comes in place, we'll see the rates come down a little bit. But I still feel like people want them to be similar to where they were before. They want a 6 in front of the number. And once that happens, there's so many houses that the prices are just going to go up on. And so, like, my mission right now is to try to get as many people to realize that you do have equity in your home. Help me help you realize it. Like, let us come in and do the work to make sure that you realize the full equity of your home now, if you do need to sell. And so I think, we definitely will see that shift. We'll see housing prices go up again as the rates come down a little bit. But the other thing I think that's going to be a byproduct, and I was having this conversation with him, is that there's certain people that maybe are coming into home ownership for the first time that don't have that 6-digit salary, and they're not going to be able to afford their first home. They're going to have to rent. And so I do still feel like the rental market's going to continue to grow, because people aren't necessarily going to be able to jump right in and buy a home like I did when I was like 19 or 20. It's just not going to happen.
That's true. With this, with the prices so high, it is very hard, especially after everything that happened. I know that we're seeing a little bit of foreclosures on the market, mainly because after COVID, you had all those mortgages that were being adjusted and they were trying to modify them, but now they're struggling and going into foreclosure and then going into rent for a little while,
Yeah.
trying to deal with that. So I think that, yeah, definitely things are changing in the market. And just like you said, I mean, a lot of people, it's hard for them to understand that they're going to wait for those interest rates to go down. And I love what you said about date your rate. That completely makes sense, because the rates are going to come down and those prices are going to come up. They can't change now that the sales price went up, but they could refinance it back down. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping a lot of people see that. So if you're able to capitalize with your company to increase the value and still get the full value out of that property, sell it, and then be able to buy again and refinance. So I think there's a lot of
100%.
so when it comes to the renovation of the home, you said it takes approximately how long for the process to go through?
Project is it takes about 3 weeks to complete. Now, our design team, once we agree on everything that needs to be done, we send a 3D to our design team, and it takes them about a week to get us back the design. And then once we agree on that, we're moving. And so that process takes us about 3 weeks, depending on what we do. Sometimes we can get done a little bit quicker too, in 2 weeks. And it's all just in how we organize the trades of when they come in. Because there definitely is an order of process. You don't want the counter people coming in after the painters have been there, because they're always going to nick stuff up and have to redo it. And so we've got this process down to where we know when things need to come in, how long it takes, and that helps us be efficient. And then, like I said, my wife managing it all through, because nobody wants to answer to her when they're not done on time. It's done on right.
That's what it takes, a good project manager to make these things
Oh
happen.
yeah. She does that with all four of us in this house. So yeah.
And so when it comes to things that you could have done, does that include the appliances and the fixtures, everything that's attached to the home, pretty
Yeah,
much?
yeah, we'll do an appliance package for sure. And just depending on what the outcome of the property is. So if it's an investment property, if it's an Airbnb, obviously we know some of the wholesale appliance companies around here that we leverage. If it's something that, buyers coming into, they want a brand new package, we'll obviously leverage things like Home Depot and stuff like that. But yeah, we do have appliance packages that we'll pull in. And then the finishes is really where I think the design team helps the property stand out, because you'd be amazed. I mean, you take, some of these old sconces and things that are out there. Like I see this S curve one that sits there in a lot of these older houses from the 80s. You replace that with something, I'm not sure if people are going to be able to see it, but what you see behind me, and it just makes the whole house pop when that matches the pulls and the color scheme. It just makes everything look so much better. So that's really where I rely on them a lot. And they're great because not only do, they recommend what it should be, they go find it for us as well. So we know exactly where to go pick it up from, and we're not paying extra for it. So they find the best price for us as well. So that kind of makes sure that we keep all the costs in line. And so they're really a great asset to us, and we'll do all that.
That is a great thing to have them local too, because they're able to see and feel what Floridians like, which may be different than up north, and give you the aesthetics of the Floridian lifestyle. And
Oh yes.
um,
Yeah, not everything works in a coastal property. Like coastal properties are totally different, and you don't put hardwood floor everywhere in Florida because it's gonna swell.
yes, definitely. And so also it goes outside as well, I'm assuming. So the deck, would it include a pool if you wanted to add a pool to the property?
There's one place that I won't go is
No.
with pools, and it's even hard to refer to pool companies. Like we had pretty good experience with ours, but it still took them like 10 months,
Yes.
and it was a little expensive. So I stay away from that at all costs, because it's a tough group.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and that could take a lot longer than you're trying to sell. So that makes
Oh,
absolute
yeah.
sense. Well, thank you so much, Justin, for coming on here and discussing with me
My
about
pleasure.
your trade and how you can help our agents with keeping them going, especially with those properties. We pick up a lot of properties that are not so much distressed homes, but distressed owners. So if they're having some struggles, maybe with after COVID or they're, job situated and they're looking, they got to sell pretty quick. This will give them the option. One time I was dealing with a project and they actually closed in. They were trying to remodel their bathroom and they ended up closing in the entire bathroom.
Oh
So there
no.
was no doors. So they couldn't go in any way to redo it. And they ran out of money and now they want to sell their home. And that is a
Oh
very,
no.
very difficult one to sell. So this gives you the option of, okay, you don't have the money to do just cut a door in to your bathroom and remodel it. You have that option for those customers. And I think this is going to be a huge partnership for us. So
100%. And that's where my passion comes in. I love to see good things happen to good people and help them realize that. So yeah, leverage us however you can in those situations.
well, this is perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, Justin, today. And hopefully
Yeah,
we can,
appreciate you.
I'd love to do this again as we start working through some projects. We can talk about some of the crazy ones we go through and keep growing
Yeah,
together.
I'll bring Tim on and she'll share all the great stories with you too.
All righty. Well, nice talking to you. And hopefully we do this again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Nadia.
As we conclude this episode, we hope you found value in this podcast. If so, we encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this valuable information to assist others in building wealth within the real estate realm. Until next time.